og jeg er pædagogisk konsulent ude på Pindstrupskolen, Specialcenter Syddjurs, en skole for børn med særlige behov. And today with me I have you, Andrew McDonnell, and we are here to have a little conversation about a lot of different things, but for example stress and well-being. But can you start by telling me a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Of course I can. I'm a clinical psychologist by background. I work with children and adults. My main specialism is working with people on the autistic spectrum, sometimes with children and adults with ADHD. And my work really evolved from some research around what I call the low arousal approach to crisis management, which I started in the late 1980s. Those ideas about low arousal kind of caught on, which is nice in many different countries, most importantly in Denmark, where the low arousal approach is pretty well known in children and adult services. I'm a visiting professor of autism studies at Birmingham City University, but I like to refer to myself as a practitioner academic. I'm not an academic practitioner. I spend a lot of my time out in the real world, working with real life people, and it's a great opportunity to be here today and talk to you at Pindstrup, where I think you're incredible practitioners of the low arousal approach and the stress and wellbeing program, the Atlas program.
So, transactional stress, can you tell me a little bit about that concept, how you understand that, and what you think is important to consider when talking about stress?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of things to understand in the work we do. We use the word stress rather than anxiety a lot of the time. And one of the reasons for that is that anxiety is something we often place in the person. We might say they've got social anxiety, or they have obsessive compulsions disorder, or they have anxiety-related conditions. Whereas at the same time in psychological research over the years, there was research done on psychological stress. Now, of course, they overlap, but there's a difference between the stress research and the anxiety research. The key difference is that in stress research, what we might call anxiety is socially transmitted, and it's about the interaction between people with stress. So we call that transactional stress. When my stress affects you, you affect me, the environmental stresses may affect both of us. It's a transaction, it's an exchange. It's not, I'm just anxious. Stress is all around us in our interactions and our movements. So transactional stress is a long well-known concept in psychology, but we don't necessarily apply it enough in our day-to-day work. And if you think about it, it makes it slightly more complicated. If I'm seeing a family, or we see people who are very stressed themselves, they may have some difficult behaviours in their child that are being magnified by their own stress. Equally, their young child's stress, as an example, may amplify their stress. Now, you put those individuals into a stressful environment or a stressful situation. COVID was a good example in the past, when people were cooped up together with not a lot of control over their life. Stress is transactional, which means stress is like any emotions, is in these models almost contagious. And that's the thing that I think people struggle to understand a lot of the time. Because when we're back to working in classrooms and we're working in situations like that, if you're a teacher or you're a parent, you see the person misbehave or do something very bizarre or odd, and our instinctive reaction is, we need to fix that behaviour. Whereas if the person's in a constant state of stress, and this circular stress, that your stress, my stress, the environmental stress is all there, that soup of stress, if we want to call it that, that's what we've got to reduce. And if we reduce that, then the behavioural issues become less. They don't go away completely, but it reduces everything with it. So that idea of the transactional model of stress, which has been long known in psychology, it's in most psychological models of stress. We, my colleagues at Studio 3 and yourselves, we find it quite liberating as an idea, because it means if we're going to help people, we don't necessarily always just help the child. We might help family stressors, or we might help the other part of the system. We might train staff, which we've done here at Pindstrupskolen, in how to manage their own stress, so that they're more regulated in those situations. So it's quite a complicated model, because it even explains why you would do mindfulness training for staff, not for the kids. Yeah. If we can get that part of that component of stress calm, more regulated, it will have a huge impact. And of course the exciting thing is, if we work systemically, we want to do that for a whole school, like here at Pindstrup. You've been doing great work in trying to get people to have a generalised focus on this, right down from the top to the bottom of the school and back up. That's what makes the difference.